In this world, individuals can unlock extraordinary abilities by consuming the fruit of the skill tree. With a bit of luck, you might become a firebender or even a legendary sword saint. However, for Light, fate had other plans. He ended up as a nutting master. On the day when skills were bestowed, Light and his childhood friend Lena excitedly made their way to the church. They chatted about the possibilities of the skills they might receive. Light had always dreamed of becoming an adventurer, so any combat-oriented skill would thrill him. Lena, on the other hand, didn't care much about the specifics as long as she could stay by Light's side. Still, the uncertainty left her a little nervous. After all, no one knew what skill they'd get until they ate the fruit. Light, however, was confident they'd both receive amazing abilities. When they arrived at the church, the Holy Sister explained the mechanics of the skill fruits. Eating one would grant them a skill, ensuring a job in a related field, without the crushing weight of student loans. The catch? You could only eat one skill fruit in your lifetime. Attempting to consume a second would result in fatal poisoning. Many had lost their lives trying to upgrade their skills, dissatisfied with their initial lot. The sister made the rule crystal clear: a second fruit was a death sentence. Lena was shaken by how dangerous the fruits could be, but the Holy Sister reassured her there was no danger if she simply followed the rule. With the warnings out of the way, the sister instructed them to choose their fruit. Lena went first. Taking a bite, her body was immediately enveloped in a radiant light. She grew hotter by the second, and the sister gasped. Lena had awakened the legendary sword saint skill, a power so rare that the sister had never witnessed its awakening before. Lena was now destined to become one of the greatest adventurers in the country. Light was overjoyed for Lena and congratulated her, but now it was his turn. Approaching the altar, he selected his fruit, hoping for a combat skill that would let him fight alongside Lena. Yet, as the power coursed through his body, his heart sank. He was just a nut master. The Holy Sister tried to console him, emphasizing that every skill had value, but it was clear his future would involve battling pests in the fields, not monsters on the battlefield. Devastated, Light asked if he could try another fruit, but the sister firmly reminded him of the fatal consequences. Lena, ever loyal, told Light she didn't care about adventuring and would stay with him in the village to grow nuts. But the Holy Sister wouldn't allow it. Lena's sword saint skill was a once-in-a-decade marvel, and the kingdom couldn't afford to waste such talent. Against Lena's protests, the sister took her to the royal capital for training. Before leaving, Lena made a heartfelt promise to return for Light one day. 3 months passed. Light, resigned to his new reality, poured his energy into farming. His nut master skill ensured the nuts grew larger and healthier, allowing him to sell them in town. While life wasn't terrible, the thought of Lena's absence and his shattered dreams lingered in the back of his mind. One day, after selling his harvest in town for a meager profit, Light noticed a poster announcing Lena's promotion to S-rank adventurer. In just 3 months, she had become one of the most celebrated heroes in the kingdom. While he was proud of her accomplishments, the news deepened his sense of inadequacy. Determined to change his fate, Light trained relentlessly in secret, swinging his sword at a tree stump day after day, hoping to awaken a combat skill through sheer will. His efforts seemed futile, until one day, something extraordinary happened. Light was convinced that if he could manage to split the stubborn tree stump in half, he could prove himself capable of becoming an adventurer through sheer determination. But no matter how hard he trained, results eluded him. Instead of strength, all he gained were bruised wrists and a growing sense of despair. Collapsing onto the ground in exhaustion, Light let his thoughts wander to Lena. Had she forgotten about him? She had promised to return, but with all the fame and fortune she must have gained by now, it wouldn't be surprising if his name and face had completely slipped her mind. Just then, a young girl named Isa approached him with a cup of water. Isa was practically an orphan, left to fend for herself after the village chief decided she was too much trouble. One day, she ended up on Light's doorstep, and seeing that she had nowhere else to go, he decided to take her in. Ever since then, the two had lived together. Isa informed Light that dinner was ready, so if he wanted to eat, he could come inside. Light gratefully accepted and sat down to his meal. As he took his first bite, Isa asked how the day's harvest had gone. Light, chewing thoughtfully, replied that profits were decent, especially now that he had started cultivating skill fruits. He then added a warning, explaining that he had carefully sorted the skill fruits into boxes marked with skull emojis and that Isa absolutely must not eat any of them. The warning would have been helpful an hour earlier. Isa, unaware of the dangers associated with skill fruits, revealed that she had already used several of them to make the stew they were eating. Light shot up in a panic, asking Isa if she was absolutely sure. She nodded confidently. His heart sank. The Holy Sister had made it clear, eating a second skill fruit was a guaranteed death sentence. Suddenly, Light's body began to heat up, and a sharp pain surged through his chest. He collapsed, convinced his end had come. Gasping, Light apologized to Isa, blaming himself for expecting her to understand the labels when she didn't even know how to read yet. As he lay on the floor, waiting for death to claim him, he realized something strange. It wasn't happening. Minutes passed, but instead of dying, he felt completely fine. Confused, Light sat up. Isa noticed the bewildered look on his face and asked if he was okay. That was the problem, he was. Consuming a second skill fruit should have killed him. Just as he was grappling with this impossibility, a sudden, sharp headache hit him, accompanied by the overwhelming surge of a new power. Isa, clutching her own head, groaned in pain. Since she had eaten the stew too, it seemed she was also about to acquire a skill. Moments later, her eyes lit up, and she exclaimed that she could see strange words floating in the air. Focusing on Light, she began reading the information aloud. According to Isa's newfound ability, Light's Nut Master skill not only allowed him to grow nuts but also made him completely immune to all nut-based poisons. Light was startled but pressed Isa for more details. Her appraisal skill revealed something even more shocking. Light had acquired a second skill. Isa announced that the new skill was called Sword God. The ability drastically enhanced Light's attack power whenever he wielded a sword and also provided a significant boost to his magic resistance. Light could hardly believe it. If Isa's appraisal was accurate, then his dream of becoming an adventurer might not be so far-fetched after all. Determined to test his new power, Light grabbed his sword and dashed into the forest. Approaching the same tree stump he had failed to split countless times, he raised his blade. With a single swing, not only did he cleave the stump in half, but the massive tree behind it as well. As the dust settled, Light stood there stunned. He was overpowered. The next day, Light headed to town with Isa, determined to visit the Adventurers Guild and officially begin his journey. Excitement buzzed in his chest as he approached the notice board, scanning the bounty quests. If he could complete just one, he'd earn enough money for better equipment, and maybe even some delicious food. But money wasn't the only reason Light was here. He wanted to test the limits of his sword god's skill in combat. This was his chance to finally become an adventurer. Telling Isa to sit on a bench and wait for him, Light approached the front desk to pick a quest. While waiting, Isa decided to explore her new appraisal skill. She scanned the adventurers in the guild, amazed by the wide variety of skills they possessed. Some were incredible, while others were hilariously useless, like the poor guy with a skill that damaged himself every time he swung a weapon. Her exploration was interrupted by a commotion at the front desk. Turning her attention there, Isa saw Light in the middle of a heated argument with a guild official. Inside the guild, Light quickly caught the attention of the adventurers around him. One man recognized him immediately. "Hey, isn't that the guy who's always selling nuts in the market?" The man sneered, mocking him loudly. "What's a nut seller doing here? Someone like you doesn't belong in the guild." Light, unfazed by the insults, simply turned to Isa and said calmly, "Let's go." This act of indifference infuriated the man. He couldn't believe Light had the audacity to ignore him. And in a completely rational response, he unsheathed his sword and lunged at Light. Thanks to his sword god's skill, Light's reflexes had dramatically improved. He easily blocked the attack, leaving the man stunned. His friends quickly intervened, realizing that Light wasn't someone they could mess with anymore. "This isn't worth it, Gene," one of them muttered, dragging him away. Gene, trying to save face, scoffed and claimed he wasn't serious about the attack anyway. He and his party then left the guild to embark on their first mission. After securing a quest of his own, Light and Isa set out for the Rocky Plains. Light was buzzing with excitement. This was his first chance to face a real monster in battle. Knowing how dangerous the area could be, he reminded Isa to stay close. It didn't take long before they spotted their target, a slime monster. Light approached it cautiously, attempting to sneak up, but the creature noticed him anyway. Switching tactics, he decided to go for a direct attack. With his enhanced strength, Light charged forward and sliced the slime in half with a single swing. The ground beneath it also split from the sheer force of his attack. While pleased with his victory, Light realized he needed to work on controlling his power to avoid unnecessary collateral damage. Isa clapped her hands, congratulating him on his first successful quest. They began cutting up the slime to bring its parts back to the guild, where they could exchange them for money. Isa hesitated for a moment, feeling guilty about dissecting the creature, but Light quickly reminded her that the reward would be enough to buy pizza. That was all the convincing she needed. As they worked, a commotion on the other side of the plains drew their attention. Shouts and the sound of heavy impacts echoed across the field. Rushing over to investigate, they found Gene and his party desperately trying to fend off a massive ogre. The group had picked what they thought was an easy quest, expecting to kill a slime and head home. But instead they had stumbled upon an ogre, a monster far beyond their abilities. The creature swung its massive weapon, forcing the group to scatter. Light called out, asking if they were okay. Jean, spotting Light, immediately came up with a plan. He and his friends sprinted toward him, but not for help. Instead, they ran past him, using him as bait to distract the ogre while they fled. Realizing he had no choice, Light prepared to face the ogre. He knew this was his chance to truly test the limits of his sword god's skill. The ogre roared and swung its mace down at him. Light leaped to the side just in time to avoid the crushing blow. Isa shouted a warning from a safe distance, reminding him that while his skill enhanced his strength and reflexes, it didn't increase his defense. A single hit could still be fatal. But Light wasn't backing down. He had resolved to become the world's greatest adventurer, and this was the kind of challenge he needed to face. The ogre swung again, but this time Light was ready. With his newfound strength under control, he jumped high into the air and brought his sword down with precision, slicing the ogre's mace clean in half. The creature roared in rage, but Light didn't stop there. In one swift motion, he delivered a devastating slash, cutting the ogre in two. From a nearby hill, Jean and his friends watched in disbelief. They had underestimated Light, and now they owed their lives to him. Later, back at the guild, Light handed over the ogre horn as proof of his victory. The receptionist was skeptical at first. Defeating an ogre alone was no small feat, but Jean's friends reluctantly stepped forward to vouch for him, confirming they had witnessed the entire fight. Satisfied with the evidence, the receptionist left to retrieve Light's reward. Meanwhile, Jean's friends thanked him profusely for saving their lives, though Jean himself remained suspiciously quiet. As Light waited, a crowd began to gather near the entrance of the guild. Curious, he asked someone what was going on. The S-rank party just returned, the adventurer explained excitedly. Light's heart skipped a beat. This was Lena's party. It had been 3 months since he last saw her, and now she was standing just a few feet away. With a mix of nerves and excitement, Light approached her, calling out her name. But instead of the joyful reunion he had imagined, Lena turned to him with a cold, unfamiliar gaze. "I've never met this man before in my life," she said, her voice void of emotion. Light froze, her words hitting him like a blade to the chest. Light has never felt this betrayed before. Lena, the girl he couldn't stop thinking about for the past 3 months, had completely forgotten him. He stands frozen, mouth agape, while Aya, clueless to his turmoil, tries to lighten the mood. She suggests they grab some pizza, hoping it might cheer him up. Despite her efforts, Light remains sulking, so Aya threatens to eat all the pizza herself if he doesn't snap out of it. Although still upset, Light won't let the pizza go to waste, especially since he spent a fortune on it. Determined, he eats so quickly that he begins choking. Before panic sets in, someone hands him a glass of water. Relieved, Light looks up to thank the kind stranger, only to find himself face to face with Lena. Before he can even call out her name, she silences him with a hand over his mouth, whispering urgently, "Quiet! Grooves might hear us." She takes a seat at the table, and Aya, unaware of their history, introduces herself. It's the first time Aya meets Lena, and she's curious how Light managed to get a kid, referring to Aya, in just 3 months. Before that tangent can continue, Light asks Lena what she's doing here. Lena, equally surprised to see him, was about to ask the same. Light explains proudly that he and Aya are now adventurers. He recounts the story of the skill fruit incident, which granted him a second skill. Lena genuinely smiles at his progress, happy that he's finally closer to his dream. Light then asks how her time with the S-rank party, Sacred, has been. Lena hesitates, but admits it hasn't been great. The pay is incredible, but the party's atmosphere is worse than a toxic gaming lobby. She warns Light to steer clear of Sacred if he values his sanity. Curious, Light asks what's so bad about Sacred. Lena recalls an incident 2 months ago when they fought a giant serpent. Knowing serpents are weak to fire, Grooves ordered the mage to cast a fire spell, but the mage went overboard, accidentally burning down a nearby farm. When Lena tried to intervene, Grooves dismissed her concerns, focusing only on slaying the serpent. Even when she reported the collateral damage to the Holy Sister, she received nothing but apathy. Their philosophy? As long as they're remembered as heroes, who cares about the peasants or their livelihoods? Though Lena doesn't outright share these details with Light, he can sense her unhappiness. He offers to let her join him and Aya, but Lena declines, bound by circumstances she can't explain. Despite her assurances that she's fine, Light sees her tears as she excuses herself from the table. Later, when Light goes to collect his reward for killing the ogre, he's shocked to receive 10,000 gold pieces, the most money he's ever seen. Yet the reward feels hollow. He's more concerned about Lena and the weight she seems to be carrying. Aya suggests confronting Sacred's leader, Grooves, directly, especially since his lounge door is wide open. Inside, Gruz is entertaining two women with exaggerated tales of his heroic battles. He boasts about taking down a grizzly with an inferno spell before delivering the final blow. As the receptionist interrupts with a complaint about their last mission, Gruz's true nature is revealed. The villagers where the grizzly was slain are struggling because Sacred's fire magic dried up their reservoir. Gruz brushes off the complaint, claiming collateral damage is inevitable. In truth, he delights in making life harder for the weak, whom he considers beneath him. Light, listening from the doorway, is livid. Lena would never stand by such reckless destruction. He bursts in, demanding that Gruz let Lena leave Sacred since it's clear she's suffering. Gruz scoffs, dismissing Light as insignificant, and calls security to throw him out. Aya rushes to Light's side as he's escorted out, but Light isn't done. The other adventurers warn him to stay away from Gruz, but Light is determined to uncover Sacred's secrets and find a way to free Lena. Light is warned by other adventurers that challenging Gruz is a terrible idea. Angering him will put Light on the Holy Sister's radar, and if she holds a grudge, his adventuring career is as good as over. Despite this, Light can't stop worrying about Lena and what she's going through. The next day, the Sacred party gathers in their lounge, basking in their supposed greatness. However, Lena is haunted by Light's words about living by her own moral code. Summoning her courage, she declares to the room that she's leaving Sacred because she refuses to abandon her morals. She starts walking toward the exit, determined to break free. Before she can leave, Gruz steps in front of her, his expression dark. "You dare defy me?" he growls, threatening to kill her. Lena instinctively reaches for her sword, but she knows that even with her sword saint skill, she's no match for him in a one-on-one fight. Reluctantly, she lowers her hand, submitting to his power. Gruz backhands her to the floor, delivering a smug, insincere speech about persevering for the greater good, and how she must endure until her inevitable death in battle. That same day, Sacred prepares to leave the town. Lena has resigned herself to a life under Gruz's thumb, believing she has no way out. However, as the party begins their journey, they find their path blocked by none other than Light. "What are you doing here?" Gruz demands, annoyed. "I'm here for my friend," Light declares. He turns to Lena. "Aya and I were planning to hunt some monsters. We'd love for you to join us. Remember our promise? To become adventurers together? I'm here to keep it." Lena's heart aches at his words, but fear holds her back. "Just leave, Light. I can't go with you. You'll only get hurt." Gruz smirks, pleased with Lena's rejection, and orders Light to move aside. But Light refuses. Instead, he boldly declares, "I challenge you to a duel, for Lena's freedom." The crowd murmurs in shock, but Gruz is unimpressed. He initially refuses, seeing no reason to waste his time on a nobody. Light, however, taunts him, asking if he's too scared to fight. The insult strikes a nerve, and Gruz, eager to prove his dominance, accepts the challenge. To raise the stakes, he sets a condition: if Light loses, he'll be banned from the Adventurers Guild forever and must leave the city. Light accepts, much to Lena's horror. "Don't do this," Lena pleads. "You can't win against him." Ignoring her, Light readies his sword as Gruz draws his own weapon. Aya scans Gruz and warns Light of his Godspeed skill, which allows him to close the distance between them almost instantly. Light steels himself, announcing that his skills are not Master and Sword God. The crowd laughs, and Gruz dismisses the claim as a joke. No one can have two skills. The duel begins, and Gruz moves at blinding speed, attacking Light before he can react. Light barely manages to block the strikes, but he's forced into a defensive position, unable to match Gruz's speed or strength. Every time Light creates distance, Gruz closes it in an instant, even appearing behind him to land a brutal knee to his side. There's no safe place on the battlefield, and Light is rapidly losing ground. Finally, Gruz destroys Light's sword with a devastating blow. With his weapon gone, the battle seems over. However, Gruz offers a cruel bargain. He will spare Light's life if Lena swears undying loyalty to him. "Don't listen to him," Light shouts. "I'll find a way to win this. Trust me." Lena hesitates but chooses to believe in Light. Her faith reignites his determination. Despite having no sword, Light spots a broom nearby and grabs it, ready to continue the fight. Gruz scoffs, thinking Light is mocking him. "You could have taken Lena's sword, but you chose a broom? Are you insane?" Light smiles confidently. "I don't need a sword to beat you." He envisions the broom as a weapon and shifts his focus. Until now, he's been struggling because he was fixated on Gruz's movements. But now, thanks to his sword god's skill, he starts predicting the flow of the battle. The duel isn't over yet. Light's new strategy proves to be the key to victory. With his sword god's skill enhancing his reflexes, he stops overthinking and lets his body react instinctively. The moment Gruz appears within range, Light swings the broom with perfect timing, smacking Gruz in the face so hard that he's sent flying into a brick wall. Gruz collapses, unconscious, and the crowd erupts in shock. Light has officially won the duel. Turning to the other members of Sacred, he warns them. If any of you come after Lena again, you'll have to deal with me. Then, he faces Lena and smiles. You're free now. So, how about joining my party for real this time? Tears of relief fill Lena's eyes as she nods. I'd love to. A week passes since the duel, and Light for Light's party has settled into a new rhythm. Light continues training and growing his skills, but now he has Lena by his side, making everything feel brighter. One day, as they sit down for lunch, a meal Lena lovingly prepared, she asks Light how his injuries are healing. He grins and assures her that he's feeling better than ever, ready to tackle any mission. But there's still a lingering problem. Since Lena left Sacred, the Holy Sister has been keeping tabs on her. Every few days, a messenger visits, trying to convince Lena to return to Sacred. Lena refuses each time, standing firm in her decision. Unfortunately, this defiance has its consequences. When Light's party goes to the guild to pick out quests, they find themselves blacklisted from lucrative missions. Instead, they're only offered low-level jobs, like killing sewer rats or rescuing stray cats. The pay is abysmal, barely enough to cover basic necessities. However, Lena doesn't mind. These small jobs give her a chance to truly help people, whether it's rebuilding homes, clearing sewers, or finding a lost pet. By the end of the day, the group earns only 100 coins, just enough for a modest meal. Yet, despite their financial struggles, Lena is genuinely happy, and Light is having more fun than ever before. For the first time, he feels like he's making a real difference, and the bond between him, Lena, and Aya grows stronger with each passing day. Meanwhile, in the Grand Cathedral of the Holy Sister, she discusses Lena's new party with her assistant. Though she disapproves of Lena's defection, she decides to give them a real job soon, an S-rank mission, one of the most dangerous assignments in the guild. While she frames it as an opportunity for redemption, her true intentions are far more sinister. Deep down, she hopes that Light will meet his end on this mission. And so, the stage is set for the next chapter in their journey. This was the end of episode 2. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.